Welcome to Africa News. Coming up, France's new Prime Minister denies Paris bears any responsibility for the Rwandan genocide. This is 20th anniversary commemoration sparked renewed accusations over what caused the bloodshed. We'll be reporting on some of the Hutu refugees heading home after 2 decades in the DRC. Doctors Without Borders reveals 4 of its members have been held hostage in DRC for the past 9 months. This amid a new military offensive against rebels in the country's east. And we'll be on the election campaign trail in Algeria, where longtime President BOUTEFLIKA has been conspicuous in his absence. We start with the Central African Republic, where the head of the African Union peacekeeping mission has been speaking to France 24. This as details of the pullout of Chadian soldiers are worked out. The country ordered their withdrawal in protest. UN claims its troops were responsible for killing 30 people in a crowded market in the capital Bangui at the end of March. The country's been gripped by intercommunal violence since mostly Muslim Seleka rebels seized power last year. Some people accuse Chad of backing the uprising. Let's take a listen now to Jean-Marie MOKOKO.
We had hoped it would happen within a time frame that was convenient for us. But it appears that the decision is not only irrevocable, but must also be enacted immediately. As soon as they're ready to leave, they will. The implications for us is that we are now missing a battalion. And I really don't have the time to generate enough manpower to replace the Chadian troops.
With more on the significance of that Chadian pullout, here's France 24's James Andre in Bangui.
This rapid withdrawal of the Chadian contingent is a setback for the MISCA. 850 soldiers less, men who were in charge of security in the northern part of the country along the border with Chad, where they enjoyed excellent contacts with the local population, and also men who were deployed in cities where the Christians are still pitted against the Muslims and where they were the only peacekeeping force. So indeed, a very big difficulty for the peacekeeping force, but also for the country's Muslims, who are now very worried. We spoke to some of them earlier today in Kilometer 5, one of the last Muslim neighborhoods in Bangui, and they were telling us that this Chadian retreat was worrying them a lot, that they felt that they were no longer protected, and they felt that they had to leave as soon as possible. Actually, the number of trucks which are loaded with the belongings of these Muslim populations have risen in the streets of Bangui, and they're telling us they're ready to go with or without an escort.
Elsewhere, France's new Prime Minister has said his country can in no way be held responsible for the Rwandan genocide. Manuel Valls' comments coming amid a bitter spat over allegations of French complicity in the bloodshed 20 years ago. The Rwandan government accuses France of missing or ignoring the warning signs and of training soldiers and militia who carried out mass killings.
I won't accept unjust accusations that France was complicit in the genocide in Rwanda. Part of this country's honor lies in separating warring parties.
This comes as Rwanda continues to mark the anniversary of the genocide with a series of events. For some of those who escaped a tragedy that killed up to 1 million people, the occasion heralds an emotional homecoming.
It's time to put it all behind them. 20 years of exile, 20 years of hardship as refugees in the DR Congo. For these Rwandan Hutus, it all ends with this paperwork.
I feel ready to return to my home country. I will finally be able to see my family again, my neighbors, because when you're a refugee, you'll never live in peace. Now I'm about to return to Rwanda, and I'm very happy.
For these Hutu refugees, returning to their country was not an easy decision. Some of them were protected by the Rwandan rebels, the FDLR. They fear reprisal attacks from the militia, and they are also worried about their safety in Rwanda. As well as protecting them, the UN Refugee Agency helps make sure the whole process goes smoothly.
Someone who has spent 20 years in the bush and then finds themselves in Rwanda will need time to adapt. They hesitate because there's going to be a lot of change, and they also fear being brought to justice. Since the UN agency has started repatriations, more than 100,000 people have returned to Rwanda.
The border is just a few meters away, almost home, finally, Elena is shaking with emotion.
There is no more war. It was time for me to go home, and I'm very happy. I'm not afraid to go home. I won't have any more problems because I will finally be in my own country, and I'll be safe.
These refugees are off to rebuild a life that was broken 20 years ago.
Okay, everyone's here?
On the other side of the border awaits Rwanda and the hope for a peaceful future.
French charity Doctors Without Borders has said 4 of its members have been held hostage for 9 months after being seized by rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The organisation taking the decision to break its silence on the group amid a new stage of a government-led military operation against armed groups in the eastern region of North Kivu. France 24 asked Manuel Lano, the head of the crisis cell for Doctors Without Borders, what was known about the captive situation and even whether they're still alive.
We don't have confirmation one way or the other, unfortunately. We have pieces of information that we managed to put together, and our analysis is that they are still alive. We don't want to consider the other option. We might have to do it at one point. There are some rumors of movements from this area towards north, south, east, west of the region. So it's extremely difficult to know where they actually might be and with which group.
Let's get an update from Algeria now, where campaigning is in full swing ahead of next Thursday's election. 77-year-old President Abdelaziz Bouteflika is all but assured of winning a 4th term. But amid ongoing speculation of his health after he was weakened by a stroke a year ago, he's been conspicuous by his absence from this campaign.
At this packed sports hall in western Algeria, only portraits of President Bouteflika gaze on supporters. They've rallied here to campaign for his re-election on April 17th. Many credit him with ending a civil war in the 1990s between the state and domestic Islamist militants.
I choose our president since he is dear to our hearts. Life was grim until he came along and brought back peace, and we are very happy with that.
But the leader himself is a no-show. Weakened by a stroke a year ago, Bouteflika has remained mostly out of the public eye ever since. Instead, the 77-year-old has been campaigning by proxy with allies such as his former prime minister crisscrossing the country in his name. His non-attendance due to his health condition has raised doubts about his ability to govern. Opponents also accuse him of embezzling public funds, and many have now placed their hopes on opposition leader Ali Ben Flais.
I chose Ali Ben Flais because his program is coherent and his message has brought back hope to us. I believe he is capable of taking Algeria out of the tunnel they have fallen into.
But despite his absence, Bouteflika is almost assured of a 4th term after 15 years leading the nation. The Algerian political system is still dominated by the National Liberation Front and its network of allied parties.
There's nothing that can make him lose. He has the support of the entire state apparatus, of the entire administration everywhere around the country.
Many young Algerians are dismissive of party politics. Recent protests have been over food prices, unemployment, and housing. The same grievances that exploded into a revolution in neighboring Tunisia 3 years ago.
From France 24's Julia Seeger, finally in South Africa. The trial of Oscar Pistorius has been adjourned after the athlete broke down in tears, describing the moment he fired the shots which killed a girlfriend at Riva Steenkamp. 27-year-old telling the court in Pretoria how he mistook her for an intruder before shooting on Valentine's Day last year. He could face life in prison if convicted of murder. The prosecution says Mr. Pistorius killed his girlfriend deliberately after the pair had an argument. That's it for Africa News. Mark Owen will be here with all the latest international headlines very shortly. Do stay with us here on Live from Paris.